So massive news broke recently confirming something that lots of us already know. Censorship is real, and it's even worse in our community when it comes to the good herb. But amid the recent Jimmy Kimmel suspension, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Meta have all admitted to censoring Americans' free speech, terminating accounts, and wiping people off of their platform, all at the request of the government, specifically the Democrats and the Biden administration. And these have ranged from political views to medical opinions and, of course, herb-related content.
Free speech is returning after some serious Biden-era censorship. Google is bringing back YouTube accounts banned for political speech and so-called misinformation. It's the latest tech giant to admit that the Biden administration was pressuring that company to remove certain content and other companies. Google sent a letter to House Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan stating that White House officials, including Biden himself, created a political atmosphere in order to dictate how it moderated content. That sounds like a command and control situation over there at Google. Was it? Here's constitutional attorney Jonathan Turley.
There was extensive censorship, not just on COVID issues, but other issues. Even jokes were being censored at the demand of the Biden administration officials. And this is part of censorship. It creates an insatiable desire, an appetite, and these companies found themselves overwhelmed. It snowballed.
The Wall Street editorial board with a headline, "When the Left Censored Speech." Full stop. Yeah, exactly. Here's part of the article. The outrage flowed righteously on the left when the Trump administration pressured private companies to suspend anti-Trump television host Jimmy Kimmel. The Biden arm twisting was more insidious because it stayed out of public view. Perhaps the White House had a guilty conscience, though more likely it didn't want voters to know. Isn't that interesting?
So this is something that a lot of people who operate in the can industry are familiar with. Censorship, Instagram accounts being deleted, pages being taken down. You wake up one morning and all of a sudden your account's gone and you're disappeared from cyberspace. Now we all know how frustrating it can be when you wake up, like I said, and your Instagram page is gone. All the hard work and all the time, effort, the memories, the content, the photos, the videos, everything is just gone. It's wiped. And this is really big news because a lot of people know and have a feeling, a strong suspicion that Instagram, Meta, all these platforms have been censoring their speech. And like I said, it's not just political speech or medical speech, but also a lot of things that have to do with the good herb.
Okay, TikTok, listen up. If we're not going to let medicine being shown, cannabis smoke, nothing else, no paraphernalia, nothing else, but we're going to let a crack pipe be shown, a cigar be shown, and bottles of alcohol, what the f*** is wrong with you?
And that's something we see right here on YouTube, Instagram. We see it all the time. Tons of things that are literally super harmful, actually harmful. But if I post a plant that just naturally grows like that, you're gonna be in trouble with YouTube. Now the thing is, the double standards are crazy. If you compare the good herb to things like alcohol, those alcohol ads are shown all the time without censorship. And this is not limited only to YouTube, because according to this article, Snapchat AI also blocks answers while providing info on alcohol and Delta 8. And according to this article, and I quote, when asked about the good herb or THC, the AI feature blocked the responses and included this note. Sorry, I can't help with that. If you're looking for something else, feel free to ask. Drug use can seriously damage your health and have legal consequences. I got some helpful resources handy for you to check out. So when you guys think we're just fighting against lawmakers, politicians, some of those old school reefer madness baby boomers, that's not the case. We're also fighting against big tech, the platform giants that are literally trying to censor anything that has to do with the good herb, or if they just don't agree with your point of view, your perspective, or your political opinion, which is absolutely mind-blowing and a violation of free speech.
House Republicans putting in writing what they've asserted all along, that the Biden White House used its position and its power to launch a campaign of censorship, coercing companies like Facebook, which is owned by Meta, and Twitter, as it was then called, Google, and Amazon, to remove or restrict content posted online.
It was the White House on January 23rd, 2021, saying take down the tweet. And the tweet, there was nothing false in the tweet. And guess who the tweet was from? Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The third day of this administration, they're trying to censor their Democrat primary opponent.
So you guys seen that. It's not just small creators, home growers, home gardeners, or just people that they don't like. They also go after some of these political figures or figures that just have a massive following and a voice. RFK Jr. is just one example of that, but let's hear what he had to say about it all.
37 hours after he took the oath of office, President Biden's White House opened up a portal for the FBI to begin to have access to social media posts on all the different social media sites And the FBI then invited in the CIA, DHS, the IRS, and CISA. CISA is this new agency that is the center of the censorship industrial complex that is in charge of making sure Americans don't hear things that their government doesn't want them to hear. And those agencies and other agencies, including the health agencies like CDC, were given access to go into the social media sites and change posts and slow walk things and shadow ban posts. That it was part of that effort. They removed my Instagram account. I had almost 1 million followers. They say it was for misinformation, but they could not point to a single post that I ever made that was factually erroneous. And they actually, Facebook pushed back in the email chain. You can see Facebook pushing back at the White House and saying, wait a minute, he's not, this isn't misinformation. This is not factually erroneous. What they're saying is actually true. And they had to invent a new word, which is called malinformation, which is information that is factually true, but nevertheless inconvenient for the government. And that became disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation. That's what that is.
Now, guys, just let that sink in. Creating new words for information that you don't like. It's factually correct information, but information that you perceive as inconvenient or uncomfortable to hear the truth of. That's malinformation. Now, I want to show you guys just how far and how deep this actually goes, because it's not only individuals like RFK Jr., individuals with massive followings, but also entire news organizations that were facing censorship from some of these big tech companies. Here's a perfect example of the Hill. Check it out.
With this similar admission about the harms caused by the COVID policy, YouTube is now welcoming all creators terminated under the policies back to the platform. Come on in, the water's fine. Now, lest you think that means a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists, that's who's coming back, right? That's anybody who got kicked off. Well, consider this. Now, longtime viewers probably remember, but this channel, what you're watching right now, The Hill, was previously suspended for a week for allegedly breaking a rule that YouTube now admits was wrong. What am I talking about? Well, in March 2022, we were informed that we had violated an election integrity policy by posting allegedly false information about the 2020 election, because we played video footage on the show, this show, of Trump saying that the election was stolen. We didn't say the election was stolen. We didn't endorse that view. We just reported the fact that Trump had said it. Think how crazy that is. Under YouTube's previous policy, they couldn't distinguish, or were unwilling to distinguish, between Trump saying something and a news channel reporting that he had said something.
So from that clip, you guys can see it's a massive problem. When a lot of these big tech platforms are actually censoring news channels and news outlets and calling the information that they're reporting on misinformation and harmful, then we have a problem, guys. Now, I just want to draw a distinction real quick, because this is definitely what I perceive to be an attack on free speech. Censoring Americans who post on Facebook, individual opinions expressed on platforms. I get it that some of these opinions definitely need to accord with your guidelines. But if your guidelines are so strict or just being warped to the point where anything can be deemed as a violation of those community guidelines, then what's the point of free speech? This video is brought to you by VivoSun, the brand trusted by home growers across the world. Whether you need tents, lights, carbon filters, or complete grow kits, VivoSun has you covered with gear that's reliable and affordable and built to help your plants thrive. I've been using their products myself, and they make it easy to grow smarter, not harder. So if you want to upgrade your grow setup, check out VivoSun. They're the home grower's choice for everything green. Use code ICANTHC to get a discount on all VivoSun gear, including the new smart lights, grow camera, and the under canopy lights. Now, we started off the show mentioning Jimmy Kimmel, and personally, I'm not a fan of some of those late night TV shows. I'm not a fan of Jimmy Kimmel, and I don't watch any of his stuff. But there are a lot of people who actually expressed a lot of concern about that, saying that that's censorship. And there were even some folks saying that that was the worst example of censorship that we've ever seen. Now, I would have to disagree with that, because if you got a job and you're working for an employer as an employee, in those situations, your contract of employment would often have terms and conditions. And if one of those terms and conditions is is that you don't say anything that can bring the reputation of the employer into disrepute, then that may be a ground for dismissal. And in the situation where Jimmy Kimmel was clearly trying to take a rip at half of America, that is definitely a ground for suspension. And that's exactly what happened when he got suspended. Now, there was tons of backlash from that, but what I found is pretty interesting is that there was not tons of backlash when the news broke that Google was censoring Americans' free speech under the Biden administration. And that's exactly the point which is raised in this next clip. Have a look.
Here's how he addressed the comments responsible for getting him yanked off the air.
It was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man. I don't think there's anything funny about it. I posted a message on Instagram on the day he was killed, sending love to his family and asking for compassion, and I meant it, and I still do. Nor was it my intention to blame any specific group for the actions of what it was obviously a deeply disturbed individual.
And even if he has their authentic emotion, doesn't protect him from his lies. It was his intention to suggest the killer came from half of America. And those lies continued last night. This was never about a joke, Jimmy. This was about the lie you used to set up the joke, suggesting that Charlie Kirk's assassin came from within MAGA. CNN's Jake Tapper looked at this entire affair involving Jimmy Kimmel and called it the worst violation of free speech in his lifetime.
I thought it was pretty much the most direct infringement by the government on free speech that I've seen in my lifetime.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what Tapper might have seen over the course of his some 60-odd years, but I could really survey this landscape over the course of, say, 24 hours, the day that he there was on a late night program, because it was the very same day that Google admitted that they were censoring content at the behest of the Biden administration. Here's what Google had to say. The tech giant revealed the Biden administration pressured them to censor everyday Americans and remove content that did not violate YouTube's policies. The company also telling lawmakers public debate should never come at the expense of relying on authorities and pledging to never use third-party fact checkers as well to reinstate impacted accounts.
Now that right there is a massive distinction, guys. There's a clear difference between someone who expresses their opinion on a platform and is censored by that platform simply because they did not agree with that perspective versus someone who says something to bring their reputation of their employer into disrepute. Let me break this down in a way that you guys can understand. If I'm just sitting down at home and I post something on Instagram, this is my opinion based on what I've seen back in the COVID era. And for that, I am censored. My account is deleted and all that stuff. Or if I just happen to post a picture of a plant and then my account's gone. That's censorship. That's stuffing the free speech down the drain. And that's completely different from someone losing their job because they violated their terms of employment.
We still have to view this in its totality. There was an unprecedented level of continuous engagement between the administration and social media companies to address not only categories of speech, but specific individuals, specific content, and specific viewpoints. The sheer quantity has a quality all of its own. The administration performed this unprecedented level of continuous engagement at several levels: the FBI, the CDC, Department of Homeland Security, essentially every single alphabet soup agency, the White House. And that's not even taking into account the State Department funding a nonprofit whose goal was to censor such radical media as the Federalist, Reason, and the New York Post. In one instance, the White House staffer Rob Flaherty sent this exact message to Google. This is a concern that is shared at the highest level. And I mean the highest levels of the White House. He's talking about the President of the United States. And this is coming from an administration that has supported and advanced several policies directly targeting the business models of social media companies: antitrust enforcement, Section 230, encryption, and the list goes on and on.
So in a situation where free speech is being stifled, accounts are being deleted, what are you supposed to do? You gotta play by their rules. Now, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg actually spoke about this, so let's hear exactly what he had to say.
Meta chief Mark Zuckerberg admitting he bowed to pressure from the Biden administration to censor content. Zuckerberg saying, "I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it." adding, "I feel strongly that we should not compromise our content standards due to pressure from any administration in either direction, and we're ready to push back if something like this happens again." President Biden was asked about misinformation online in the summer of 2021.
On COVID misinformation, what's your message to platforms like Facebook?
They're killing people. I mean, look, the only pandemic we have is among the unvaccinated. And they're killing people.
And now they're bringing back some of these accounts that were actually deleted for quite some time. Check it out.
Google announcing it will reinstate YouTube channels that were permanently banned for political speech, saying it was pressured by the Biden administration to remove content that did not even violate YouTube's policies. In a letter to the House Judiciary Committee, a lawyer for Google said, quote, "It is unacceptable and wrong when any government, including the Biden administration, attempts to dictate how the company moderates content, and the company has consistently fought against those efforts on First Amendment grounds." Journalist and author Alex Berenson is suing the Biden administration now after he was banned from Twitter in 2021 for violating the platform's COVID-19 misinformation guidelines, and he joins us now. Good morning to you, Alex.
Ainsley, good. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on to talk about this. It's remarkable. Big tech, social media companies censoring people because of pressure from the Biden administration. Do you feel vindicated now that they're admitting this?
Well, I do feel vindicated. Jim Jordan has been doing a lot of work on this for a long time, and he's gotten documents out, but it's really nice to see Google come out and admit this. As some of your viewers may know, in 2021, I sued Twitter and forced them to let me back on the platform before Elon Musk bought it. So that was a small win for free speech. But right now, yes, I'm in the middle of suing the Biden administration, which obviously is not in power anymore, over what they did to force Twitter to lock me out, to suspend my account in 2021. And I'm glad to see this admission. My case is sort of at an interesting moment because the Trump administration really has to decide if they want to defend the Biden administration's censorship going forward. Obviously, I'm hoping they're not going to do that.
Now, that guy may have enough money to be able to sue the Biden administration, but a lot of people don't, and they simply don't have the resources to go against big tech and try to get their accounts back. Even if they send emails, reach out to chat support, hit them up on Twitter, they're probably not going to get that account back. And even amid promises by Google to bring back some of these creators' YouTube accounts, it turns out that some of them were brought back, but then they were swiftly removed right after that. And that actually led Vivek Ramaswamy to send a public message to YouTube calling for them to return, but also calling for him to stop the censorship.
This is a message for the leadership of YouTube. Frankly, I probably could have called you privately, but I think it's better to just talk about this in the open on this particular issue. My understanding is in the last 24 hours, you locked the accounts and shut down the accounts of two guys, Nick Fuentes and Alex Jones. They have big followings on the American right. I think it's better if you just unlock those accounts and let the guys be heard. And I say this not because I'm some particular fan or vice versa. At least one of them, Nick, is probably not a particularly big fan of mine. No more than Jimmy Kimmel is, by the way, for very different reasons. That's beside the point. It doesn't matter.
These creators were deleted by YouTube some time back, but upon the admission by Google, their accounts were reinstated, but only for a short while because they were quickly deleted again. Now, Vivek Ramaswamy goes on to explain a few different distinctions, and I think this is key. So have a look at this, guys.
About whether somebody says a particular thing that you think doesn't belong on your platform. That's one category of speech moderation. There's a different category of saying that you may demonetize certain people. You're not going to pay them. That even if they're able to speak on your platform, it's not necessarily their right to be paid for doing so or putting advertisers next to their name. That's a separate discussion. Personally, I don't like any of those forms of speech suppression as a general matter, but at least those are discussions that reasonable minds can have. There's a whole separate third category of censorship, though, that I think is particularly harmful, which is the idea that just because of who you are, your name and who you are, you don't get to express any idea, whether it's misinformation, hateful speech, whether it's dangerous or whatever you deem it to be. Irrespective of that, you're not making that judgment. Just based on who you are, you don't get to speak. I think that breeds mistrust. I don't think that's good for our country.
And I would have to agree with that, guys. A lot of folks have a lot of mistrust when it comes to these big platforms. A lot of folks in the CANNABIS community are not happy because they're always at risk of being taken down. And that's something that we've even seen on YouTube, where in certain countries they'll actually block any CANNABIS related content. And that's something that a creator actually made a video about recently, so let's show you guys a quick clip.
Why is the most popular video on cannabis on YouTube for the month of October no longer available to large parts of the global population? Well, we're referring to the cannabis question that featured by PBS Nova specifically at the end of September and garnered over 1 million views in a very short period of time. This was a great documentary. I enjoyed sharing it. However, we can see in the timeline that it's no longer available. Essentially, we're stuck with mosquitoes and hurricanes, and even reference is made to the cannabis question in newer clips on the channel. Now, the question is, was this done by PBS intentionally or by YouTube, where it was restricted in certain areas? We do know that we can access the video. We have included the link in the description via a VPN in the United States still. However, this does raise a concern for me, which is, why is it that such a good documentary, such a high quality documentary, is no longer available in certain parts of the world? Now, if you've noticed or watched this documentary and it's no longer available in your region, can I please ask that you add that to the comments so we can see how extensive the censorship of this documentary has been.
And that's a documentary put out by PBS, a literal documentary, guys, and YouTube is blocking it in certain countries. If you're in the US, you may be able to see it, but if you're outside of the US, in a lot of countries, it's actually blocked. Now, just to show you guys how crazy it is when it comes to censorship and the good herb, I'm going to show you guys a few clips which scream reefer madness, and also where a medical herb ad was banned from the Super Bowl. Let's check it out.
Stay off the weed.
Marijuana is only safer because potheads still live with their overprotective mother.
Well, pot is inert, but we've used it to enable our sloth.
Drunks have roommates and cokeheads have their own place. That's basically how you break it down.
There's tobacco and marijuana in there. That's all it is.
So is it time to admit that legalized pot and the whole experiment has failed?
For some, the commercials are the best part of Super Bowl Sunday, but one controversial ad will not be seen this year.
This ad, released by Acreage Holdings, a cannabis company in the U.S., displays a son's constant seizures, a man's complications from prescribed opioids, post-triple back surgery, and an amputee military veteran.
Medical cannabis saved Austin's life.
Cannabis has given me my life back.
Sacrificed so much for this country, have access to the safest treatment possible. This really is an injustice.
Legalization is prevalent in 33 states, including the District of Columbia. The NFL rejected the ad, stating CBS will not be accepting any ads for medical marijuana at this time.
So even an ad for medical herbs showing the benefits when it comes to some of these products, they were like, no, we don't want that at all. Let's get that off of this platform. And the double standards and hypocrisy is crazy, because if there was an ad from Big Pharma, they would 100% run that and run the money into their pockets as well. Now, a lot of businesses also face issues when it comes to advertising, especially relating to the good herb, and that's something we're seeing down in Indiana, where they passed a law to ban any advertising for herb.
Some new legislation. Indiana lawmakers are officially banning any advertising for marijuana in the state of Indiana. The private use of marijuana is legal in Michigan, Ohio, and Illinois, so often pot businesses advertise in Indiana to draw customers over the border. The ban applies to billboards and other signs posted along highways and other forms of advertising, including flyers many people receive in their mailboxes.
Now, let me know what you guys think about all this. Drop it in the comments down below. I'm really interested to find out what you guys think about this censorship issue, especially when it comes to the good herb. Drop it down there. I'm really interested to find out what you guys got to say. And if you ever had an Instagram page, Facebook page, YouTube page deleted, drop it down there as well and let me know. Now, I know a lot of you guys that tune into this channel are home gardeners, and there's one state that's actually tracking home gardeners and putting all of their information on a registry. So if you haven't seen it, check that video because it's coming up right now.